As we mark 21 years since the 9/11 attacks, people across this nation are once again promising to never forget. We do that by remembering the stories of tragedy, of heroism, and of unity that define that fateful day. Well, now a local journalism professor at Quinnipiac University is highlighting all the work journalists have done to tell those stories in his podcast series, Reporting on 9/11. Take a listen.
It was an honor to be there because it was so important and so critical to tell the story with dignity and respect and poise and calm, despite what maybe I was feeling actually physically and emotionally. But I didn't think twice about not going, or I didn't think twice about this is going to be dangerous or hard or emotionally draining. You just go.
I'll just never forget that as the people started to come up from the train from New York, I could tell who had seen the attack, who had seen the people falling or jumping, simply by looking at the ashen color of their faces. The shock was like nothing I've ever witnessed before or since. I could only liken it to someone who actually had seen a ghost.
You get chills listening to those accounts. Joining us now is the man behind this podcast, Associate Professor of Journalism at Quinnipiac University, Ben Bogardus. Ben, thank you so much for joining us this morning on this anniversary.
You're welcome.
Such an important project right here. Tell us about the podcast, why you started this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a newscast producer in Washington, D.C., and I would talk to the reporters and the photographers and the editors who were there that day, and the stories they had were just amazing in the sense of what they did, what they went through, what they saw, and the way it affected the rest of their career. And I always thought, I want to do something with this. I want to record this. We need to make sure that this is saved for future generations and for people who weren't around when it happened. And when I came to Quinnipiac, I finally had the opportunity to put this together. We have a podcast studio there. I'm responsible for doing some creative works as part of my work there. So I thought this is the perfect time to record this.
And you talk about passing these stories down through generations. I mean, 2 decades at this point have passed since 9/11.
Absolutely.
There's a generation out there that wasn't even born when this happened. So these stories really keep the memories alive. How important is that part of this?
Oh, it's crucial, especially the students I deal with at Quinnipiac. Many of them weren't alive. I mean, the oldest would probably be 22, so would probably be 1 year old when this happened more than 2 decades ago. So really showing them what happened that day from the people who were there and the journalists who were there covering it, I think is a great way as a teaching tool, but also a way to inform the future generations of what it was like that day.
And tell us about the structure of the podcast. Every episode you're speaking with somebody different. We heard 2 accounts in the intro right there. Who are you speaking with? What are they saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So I focus on one journalist per episode, and it's not a conversation, it's not a talk show style. Instead, I'm taking their story and I'm editing it down into sort of the essence of what it was like there. So it's a really self-contained narrative. Each are about 10 minutes long, so it's not a lot of commitment if you want to sit and listen to 1 or 2 of them. And I tried to pick journalists who are sort of a mixture of places. I have some people who were in New York City, some people at the Pentagon. I have one reporter who was actually the first reporter to arrive in Shanksville, Pennsylvania that day. He said he was, just in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. He describes it, just doing a different story that day. And suddenly his phone rings, and they say, "Get over there. We don't know what it is, but something's happened." And it turns out he got there before some of the first responders even arrived.
That's crazy. I mean, to read about the accounts is one thing. To hear it for yourself, that's another thing. Obviously, all different accounts in these episodes. Is there a unifying message, something that kind of ties all these episodes together that you learned about as you interviewed these people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it came down to is everyone had a sense of duty, and that really shined through in all of the people I talked to. Is they said that people were running away from these scenes and they were running in. They didn't give it a second thought. At the time, in their mind, they may have been panicking or thinking, "What's going on here?" But they had to suppress that. They had to put that down because they thought they had a greater duty to inform the public. And I think that really shows the best of journalism, that these reporters were willing to put their own safety, their own comfort at risk because they thought, I need to do this for other people.
Yeah, that's our job, telling those stories for generations to come, as you mentioned. Really quickly before we go, can you tell us where we can listen?
Yes, it's on any podcasting app, Apple, Spotify. Reporting on 9/11 is the name of the show. And right now there's 11 episodes and have 4 more coming out over the next few weeks.
That's awesome. Ben, thank you so much for joining us
You're
this
welcome.
morning. Really, really appreciate that. The time now, 8:45. Want to get you a check on the forecast and for